Just to let you know, the coffee break was after, so I don't know who went for coffee and who's late, but it's unacceptable. I'm trying to be strict right now. It doesn't work, no, at all. So I hope you had an amazing speech before. I hope you enjoyed it. So right to the second one of the afternoon. So for the next session, collaborate with confidence while hybrid working. We are happy to welcome on stage the Director, Product and Business Management at Jabra, who has planned, positioned, preached, and promoted innovation in consumer electronics products to diverse global consumers and valued partners throughout his 20-plus years international career. So a big round of applause, please, for Tim Hernquist.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Cool. It's a cool afternoon session, and I want to talk about hybrid working, which everybody in this room knows something a little bit about. But I'm hoping that through some of the work that we've done at Jabra and through some key partners like McKinsey and Steelcase, that I can highlight a few additional insights that might help you decide how you're going to manage your own offices, or help customers decide how they're going to manage their own offices, or also even help employees get better engagement and a lot more happiness and a lot more fun out of working in a hybrid world. So I want to cover a little bit what hybrid looks like today. And so we're going to start with what the change was, what the challenge is, and the way forward. So the change, I think most of us know what it meant to be in the hybrid world. But let's talk about first where we were. We started off really with working in the office. That's the traditional way of working, and up until March of 2020, we had pretty much a standard headquarter model where there was a hub and spoke construction. We've got a headquarter with some satellite offices, and basically everybody would go in the office. We also had remote workers. That's nothing new, really. There's plenty of people who are road warriors or virtual workers, or even what do you call those, freelancers, or even these digital nomads. Working remote has not been, an old concept. It's an old concept. We know about it a little bit. And in between, obviously, the hybrid is where we've got a little bit of both. And so I want to dig into each one of these to kind of explain what the challenges of all three of these. In the office side, it's something we knew and loved. And I even designed an office for my last company. And it's a really interesting scenario and a place that we all really like to go to in the past. There are good things. It's really the one place where you're able to kind of come together and build up your social capital. It's time to spend at the coffee station or at the water cooler, or it's about creating the music between the nodes. It's about talking to your colleagues between the meetings. It's about being around people. It's about building up a culture. It's about having a good time, and also collaborating. So sometimes, in this world that we live in, topics get really super complicated, and you can't solve them all by yourself. So you have to go around and you have to talk to your colleagues. So being in the office is a great place to build up that social capital, and help you kind of build your culture and be part of an office and a team. What's not so good about that? Well, offices these days tend to be, in some cases, open office concepts, and so you're having a lot of people smacked on top of each other, and so what you're going to have is a lot of noise, a lot of distractions, a lot of stuff going on. And Jabra has been working on this for a long time about, how do you help people collaborate, concentrate, and be flexible within an office scenario there. But the people still battle noise and interruption, and in our surveys, 81% of the people that we talked to said the number one thing that they think is bad about being in the office is interruptions, and it hurts their productivity. When we look at remote, let's talk about the good stuff about remote. Independent thinking. You can get your head down. People are not in your face. You have your own home office. You can get yourself a cup of coffee whenever you want. You can really concentrate on what's going on. Sometimes you don't have to wear a headset all day long, right? Because you are working just in your home office. You can think creatively. You can learn new things. You're basically the master of your own scenario. And when the pandemic hit us, the one thing that workers said when they were working from home is that they have a better work-life balance. So if you need to pick up your kids from the school bus, you can do that. If you need to run to the post office real quick, you can do that. You can blend that into your work day, and that's a really nice way to work. There are some bad things about working remotely though. Connecting with your team, that's not an easy thing to do when you're at home. You used to be able to just pop by somebody's office and say hello. Now you have to schedule a Teams meeting, right? And you have to they only come in half an hour increments, so I'm gonna have to talk to this guy for half an hour just because I want to check with him real quick. Also staying motivated on the ball. If you're watching people in the office and they're moving and grooving, you might not see that when you're at home office, so you might not be getting that going on as much. And interestingly, through the survey we did in our knowledge worker report, we learned that 50% of the people we talked to were worried about their careers as a fact of working from home. So people don't feel like they can climb the ladder as easily as if they were in the office. And I think a lot of executives too think that people aren't working unless they can see them at their desk working, right? So there's a little bit of that career ladder thing that needs to be addressed when you're only working remote. So that brings us to hybrid working, which is pretty much the blend of working from the office and working from home. It's doing some work at home, doing some work at the office, and then probably working somewhere in between. And how do we make that work? There are some good things about it. People we talked to said the ideal working week does include a blend of working from home and working in the office, and probably working from somewhere else in between. If you work at Jabra and you talk about noise canceling headsets all the time, you find yourself in a coffee shop as loud as you can get it so you can show off your noise cancellation headsets. We do that a lot. That's our third place oftentimes. But also all of us today here in this room, we're working remotely or in a third place, and I'm sure all of you are checking emails and maybe having calls with your teams. How do you do that in a great way? You have to do it with technology. And so that's the challenge. So employees like to have a hybrid work scenario, 68% we found in our studies. Interestingly, 90% of executives believe exactly the same thing. So they don't believe that they're going to be able to bring everybody back in the office. It's a tough scenario. I think you've seen some of the big tech companies recently have had some trouble saying, hey, everyone come back in the office. I spoke to some people this morning, and companies are asking them to come back in the office, and everyone kind of is like, yeah, maybe, I'd like to, sometimes. I don't want to be there all the time. But so workers and executives are aligned. That is a good sign, and I think that makes people at Jabra believe that hybrid working is something that's here to stay and not going anywhere, at least for the foreseeable future. The funny thing is that hybrid working is nothing new, actually. The new normal is actually something we've had before, and I really like this quote from Satya Nadella. Back in 2015, he said this: work is no longer a place you go to, it's about making things happen wherever you are. Microsoft is pretty visionary on a lot of stuff like this, but I think hybrid working is one of the areas. Thinking about enabling spaces with video is another area where they're quite visionary. And to think that this was 7 years ago and they're already thinking about hybrid working is pretty cool. So we're in the right place. Jabra was kind of there. I put on the Evolve 80 in case you recognize that headset. We launched the Evolve 80 in 2014 as the first step of the evolution of the workplace. It's a headset that allowed people to kind of start that evolution, be able to kind of work in the office and concentrate at the same time. So there are some challenges when you talk about these different work models. Interestingly, I think this number's probably gone up since the last time we did this research, but it's still, I think, a good number in that only 11% of organizations have a detailed plan in place, have communicated that plan, and also have started doing POCs. I talk to a lot of customers now because we're talking a lot about video collaboration at Jabra now. And it still remains pretty standard that not many people are actually doing something about it. A few people have put some cameras in conference rooms. A few companies are talking about replacing old equipment with newer equipment. A lot of equipment changes have happened in the last 3 years. There's a lot of new stuff on the market, and we have a lot of stuff to talk about at Jabra. But it's interesting that this still probably is true. And the other thing is that not only have we not tried anything in our offices yet, but employees believe they do not have the right stuff to be productive in a hybrid working way. There's technology that needs to happen. They need to go back to the office in a different way than they did before. They're not going to have their desk as it was before. They're going to come into the office and they're probably going to have meetings. They're probably going to collaborate with people, and then they'll probably want to get out of there to get some work done again. So it's a different scenario in the workplace than we had before. And they need different types of technology to make it work. The other thing, I think the last guy was talking about, but it's also, we've seen a lot. When you're no longer within the walled garden of your office environment, you got a lot of people working on a VPN. You've got a lot more cybersecurity attacks since the pandemic happened. It's going more and more and more. This was in 2021, 400% increase only in the US. Certain places that have been even worse. So that is an area where, people like us in this room need to think about how do we help our employees be more safe when they're working wherever they may be, either in the office or at home or in a third place. And digital fatigue, we'll talk a lot about that at our booth. If you talk to Parm later, Parm and I were going to be at the booth to talk about digital fatigue. But it's a real thing. When you're stuck in your desk all day long, you don't stand up and walk around, you don't pump the blood through your body. And on top of that, a lot of the calls we're on, you're on mute, or the video quality is bad, the audio quality is bad. It grains on you all day long, and by the end of the day, you're exhausted, and you've only sat in your home office for that day. So it's really interesting. So there's some interesting technology things we can talk to you guys about to make that better, to make your employees more engaged. Let's talk about the lack of supplies. Interesting. 42% of employees say they lack the essential office supplies to actually do their work at home. A lot of companies have supported by giving stipends for money, or even buying a headset for people to work at home, or even a speakerphone, etc. But that's not the norm. The norm is, good luck. Here's a laptop, and what we saw in the beginning of the pandemic is a lot of companies going to buy the cheapest headsets they could get. And now a lot of companies are coming back around and talking to us about getting the right headset for their employees, because they realize hybrid is not going anywhere. And interestingly, 72% of these employees know that if they had an enterprise-grade headset, which means works well with Teams, is certified, has a mute button, can work with every platform that I have a call about, has noise cancellation, so that you can't hear the dog barking in the background. A lot of these employees know that these types of headsets will help them do a better job engaging in their job. But for the most part, companies are not providing those equipments to their people at the moment. So how do we look at this the way forward? This is kind of the ideas I wanted to kind of bring forward to you guys to think about what this might be for you guys in the future. So if you look at the main challenges around the stuff I just talked about, so lacking vision. One of the things is, rather than worrying about how many hours they're in the office, focus on their output. That's a simple one. I think we do that quite well at Jabra. I joined Jabra in the middle of the pandemic, and we have like 300 people in North America, and I don't know where anybody lives. Still don't. You have to really ask them, because we're always working from home. And so it's not important to see them in their job. It's important to see that they're contributing and bringing some great stuff to the table. In terms of wrong spaces, think about how to adapt your culture. I talked to some guys earlier this morning that are thinking about what types of cameras are great for the areas they have. How do I get video in conference rooms? It's a pretty standard question. But how do I get video in collaboration spaces? How do I enable everyone to have a video meeting? Because when I'm looking at somebody in a meeting, it feels like I'm actually having a meeting with them. Safety and security, think about your situation. Think about cybersecurity. First of all, you're going to be doing an audit on that. Then think about what sorts of technologies you have in your offices, and think about, are those suitable for the future? And then digital fatigue. Digital fatigue sometimes needs to come from technology that's smart. And we'll talk a little bit about that at our booth around the Panicast 50. You know, digital fatigue is about having great meetings so you can see and hear everybody. It's also about not working all day long in front of your desk. It's about autonomous communication that doesn't have to happen in the blink of a second. It's about allowing people to work in their flexible workplaces. So lack of supplies. 68% of people would rather have professional grade materials given to them. 55% of them would be comfortable with having a tech bundle. And 84% people believe that technology can help all employees get equal access to career advancement. So that's interesting. So if I have the right tools, both at home and at the office, and I can take tools around with me, I feel like I can do a better job. I feel like I'm more connected and create a culture with my team. And I think that I'm not going to be forgotten by my manager should the next promotion opportunity come up. So there's a lot of benefit that's much higher than just the cost of a digital headset in that equation. It is about making sure your teams are able to be productive and have a great time doing it as well. That's where Jabra obviously comes in. We all work remotely, and we do have an office, but we all work remotely and we try to eat our own dog food in a way. So what do we have at Jabra? We have a full portfolio that we'll show you at the booth, but in general terms, we have 3 key franchises. One franchise is around digital headsets, and we call that Evolve. Evolve and Evolve 2, those are headsets that are focused on being the best headsets for in the office, because they are focused on active noise cancellation, passive noise cancellation, and open office certified microphones. That enables you to concentrate, collaborate, but also be flexible with where you're going. A lot of these headsets now have new digital chipsets that allow much longer battery life. Some of these headsets get a whole week's long of battery. So you can be anywhere you want and still join on any Zoom or Teams call and be great at it. We obviously have Panicast. Panicast is an exciting story for Jabra. We just bought a company in 2018 and we're starting to bear the fruits of that investment now. We have this Panicast 20 personal video camera, which you'll see at our booth. It really drastically improves the way you can present yourself wherever you are. I take my camera with me everywhere. The camera is unbelievably clear. It always keeps me in the center of the frame, and it has some tricks up its sleeve in order to allow me to do better presentations. So it's a whole step above in terms of what a traditional webcam looks like today. But we also have cameras like the Panicast 50 for conference rooms that are changing the way people collaborate, because we're able to have face-to-face meetings, take advantage of Microsoft Teams front row layouts, and also the technology we've built in is Edge AI technology. That means the power that we have in those cameras are available on any UC platform whatsoever. And then of course we have our speakerphones. We are the leaders in this category. There are many people who are trusting us with a daily speakerphone, and as we've seen through the pandemic, speakerphone usage has become much more personal. It used to be something you saw in a conference room. Now people take them home and use them in their home offices, and you don't have to wear a headset all day long, and you still enjoy a speakerphone. So I tried to put on a picture here that, it's not just one scenario where you need to think about hybrid working. There are many different scenarios. We collaborate at home, at work, and anywhere in between. You go from hot desk neighborhoods to full conference rooms. You go from single desk or home office, where you need to concentrate and get your head down, or you're doing a flexible collaboration meeting. So there are different bits of technology that need to happen in those scenarios in order to make it as best as possible. So if I overlay some of the Jabra products onto those, you'll see, there are some considerations that you need to have for each of those scenarios, and it's important to work with a vendor that has a full portfolio that allows you to kind of work through each of those scenarios in a great way and have high performance, high quality products that will last you a long time. I was asked to do a testimonial here. I have many customers that are now really starting to think about what it means to be in hybrid work scenarios. Here, PC Corp, they just realized that Panicast 50, with its 3-lens technology, that allows the conference room to see the whole room. It has a 180-degree field of view. That means that camera sees the entire room, which means everybody who's in the meeting room is part of the meeting. That's not always the case with every camera you have. And secondly, with dynamic composition, which you'll see at the booth, everyone in the room gets their own box in Teams or in Zoom or whatever platform through that camera, which means the people on the far end, which is often forgotten when you're going back into the office, they get to see people as if they were there when we were all just on virtual meetings, which means the engagement and the productivity goes way up because you're having good conversations. Everybody has a seat at the table. These guys are so believing that now that they're just recommending Panicast 50 for most scenarios. And some of our customers, big customers in North America, for example, have rolled out now several thousand cameras into all their premises and are working through what that kind of benefit has been for their employees. So really exciting to see that some of the smart things we put into the camera have really given some tremendous benefits for companies in North America. So that is basically, I want to do some Q&A, but before I get to the Q&A, I wanted to let you know that Parm and Tonya are here along with me, and we'd love to see you at the booth. If we scan your badge, you're going to get a chance to win a Meet Anywhere bundle, which is hybrid working envisaged. So we've got this nice carry bag with a table stand for the Panicast, and also a Panicast in it. So make sure you get your badge scanned, and we can help you win that. So let's go through some Q&A. Does anybody have any questions about hybrid working?
Yeah, you can just raise your hand and I'm going to come to see you. Here you go. So now I feel useful. So, and I'm doing more steps through my day, which is amazing.
Thank you. The question is simple. You notice that one of the biggest problems, people don't want to come to office because of the noises. Are there any chances that more affordable headsets, like under $100 ever, will have a noise cancellation? Because it looks like right now the economy of scale doesn't really work in headsets. We're just getting them way more expensive than before. Like I had a Plantronics for $250, and now I see there is a lot of headsets in $380, $400 instead of cheaper. Which means, and most of the IT directors never buy expensive headsets on a scale. It's only for executive team, and everyone else is kind of sucks.
Yeah, it's true. Not only that, but if you pick a headset, you're bound to pick the wrong one because people won't like it. I remember that. I bought headsets for my team, and I was sure it was going to be 50% dual and 50% single here, and I was totally wrong. Yeah, so there is a broad portfolio in Jabra that is also starting below $100 and goes up to very expensive, of course. But some of the things you need to consider when you're looking at the headsets, even at the lower end, which we've put in. We have a sub $100 headset, Evolve 230, for example. It's sub $100 MSRP. It has tremendous passive noise cancellation. We've got great patents on the foams that we use in the ear cups. They're very comfortable. It's an open office certified boom arm, so you will not have distractions from what's going on around you. It does not have active cancellation, but the foam cups are so strong that you'd be surprised how much cancellation of noise you have around you, which is really there. And then it's talking about flexibility. Are people interested in having a corded headset or a wireless headset? I think there's quite a gamut also within Panicast and Jabra that has we have quite a broad portfolio. It also, I would say, the use case. We've also gone from maybe having one or two collaboration meetings through Teams or WebEx before the pandemic, to now most of the time being on a Teams call or a Zoom call, and so you've ramped up the amount of time you have using a headset. And so, having a headset that's comfortable to wear over long extended periods of time is also something interesting. So you may want to think about not only worrying about pure noise canceling, both in terms of the environment around you, but also the microphone, but maybe just the comfort. We talk a lot about in the call-centric headsets we have, audio quality is number one. Always having a voice making phone calls is still number one, and making sure the voice can be heard is number one. Then it's build quality. Is this thing going to last me for a while? So if you spend a little bit more money on a headset, it'll probably last you longer. We've got Kevlar cords and all kinds of things in Jabra. And then third is comfort, ABC. So comfort, can you wear it for long periods of time? And is it going to do the job that I need to? And can I even keep wearing it all day long? Those are considerations I would make.
Do we have other questions?
Oh, I would also add on to that question, through the market data we're checking now, there's a tremendous increase in higher end headsets over 2022. So it seems to be that we did kind of have a knee-jerk reaction into the pandemic and bought whatever was available, and oftentimes, our channel stock was gone within 1 week, all of the channel stock completely. And then we worked really hard to come back and make sure that we had stock available for everybody else. And in that time, all kinds of stuff was purchased. And we're seeing now a correction of that. I think people have realized that you may go do a cheap headset, but it really is not beneficial for the team. And so some of the things that I talk about that you need to consider is make sure the audio quality is good, that it's going to last you longer, it's going to be comfortable, it's going to cancel the noise. Those are values that probably should be considered when you think about headsets.
Any questions? Oh.
The question is around echo. So you talked about conference room and open collaboration spaces. For larger organizations, sometimes you have up to 20 conference room, and these rooms not necessarily don't have the right acoustics in them to minimize echo. So especially in a bigger conference room where you have two microphones, the echo is so much the microphones, it jumps back and forth between microphones. Is there any digital solution coming for that through Jabra? And do you have any best practices, anything that you recommend to your clients?
Yeah, it's a good question. For the Panicast 50 specifically, there's currently no auxiliary microphones you could put onto it. But the construction is so that the speakers that are built into the soundbar are facing each other, and as a result, they cancel out any sort of echo or vibration you would have in the chassis of the device, which is quite a smart engineering mode there. When that happens, then the 8 beamforming microphones that are in that soundbar are tremendously better at doing their job, which is catching the person's voice. Jabra is an audio company. We've put in the DSPs to make sure that the echo is canceled, that reflection is canceled, or even non-voices are canceled as much as possible. But the philosophy is still that the voices need to be picked up at Jabra, because in a meeting room scenario, especially when you have sometimes medium to larger rooms, the voices tend to be a problem even if you have a lot of people in the room. So making sure that those 8 microphones are doing the best that they can to pick up human voices, that's what our DSPs are tuned for. Jabra needed to start somewhere in terms of collaboration video bars, and so Panicast 50 is what it is in terms of starting to a medium or small meeting rooms, and that's where we're working on well. But the roadmap is really exciting, and when you think about some of the speaks that we've had, and the ability to link them together through Bluetooth, and to be able to separate those microphones a little bit further, add microphones in, it's a really exciting space. And I think that for us, nothing to say today, but you'll be surprised at all the things we have cooking in the product factory at the moment.
Any more questions?
Okay. well, come and see us. See Tonya and Parm and me will be at the booth later, and we've got lots of cool stuff to talk about in the cameras, and anything around hybrid working I'm happy to discuss. So thank you for being here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Tim. So now we have a coffee break sponsored by the Visionaries. So you can go in the hallway. There's going to be coffee and there's going to be some pastries. That looks amazing. So the next speech is going to be at 2:45. So we actually have a little less than 30 minutes. So don't be late, guys, please. For the next speaker, we have 3 more speeches.